You guys ready? Listen to this. 1, 2, 3, left and go. Soft, right. And the right. What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Today I bring you the 2021 Ford Edge ST. So in 2019, our buddies, Yuri and Jacob, reviewed the 2019 Ford Edge ST. Now see, at the time it replaced the Ford Edge Sport, so you could only get the ST. And it had three major issues that they found, and we take their opinion without a grain of salt. And the first issue they had was the interior. It felt a little bit outdated. The second one is you couldn't get this body styling on anything but the ST. You couldn't get a lower base version with a smaller engine with this sort of look. And the third one, which is the most important, which I'm gonna go deep in, is the transmission. You see, it had an 8-speed transmission, and it felt a bit clunky. So here we are in 2021. This is a refresh version, and they've addressed all three of those issues. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the front, I'm going to talk about the side, I'm going to talk about the back, I'm also going to jump in the interior, show you the space, I'm going to take you for a drive, and we are going to talk about the 2021 Ford Edge ST. So there's major criticisms on this 8-speed transmission. Now, this transmission was in the 2019 and 2020 model. It's in 2021 they did something completely different. Now, instead of dropping the whole 8-speed transmission and putting a different transmission in there, Ford did something that saved cost but also made sense. Not just reprogramming them, they actually deleted a gear. Now, they deleted the second to third gear, so it doesn't exist anymore. So now it's a 7-speed transmission. And I couldn't find that data. I looked hard and figured out what transmission's in this. People complain about the 8-speed, but now there's a 7-speed in it, and there's not a lot of press about it. Yeah, they put a 7-speed in this thing now because they can market it that way, but it's still the original 8-speed. So if you took it all apart, there's no difference between the 2019 and 2021. It's just that it's programmed differently and skips a gear. And speaking of transmissions, some people are adamant about putting the 10-speed transmission in the Ford Edge ST. The problem is you can't, because this is a transverse engine, and really that transmission is really designed for a rear-wheel drive biased vehicle. This, on the other hand, is front-wheel drive. Now, as far as all-wheel drive, because all STs come standard with all-wheel drive, it's a front-wheel bias, similar to the Audi Q5 with the all-track system. And what that essentially does is it can disconnect the front to the back. So when you're steering pointing straight, the back disengages and it's completely front-wheel drive. Yes, exactly the same system as the Audi Q5. So on the front of the vehicle here, we do have a full LED housing. So everything's LED about it. You've got the front low beams, high beams, and the DRLs, and then they do have the fog lights there in LED. There's nothing xenons about it, and obviously nothing halogen. Now, as far as the front grille goes, this is your typical ST that you had in the last generation or last facelifted one. And right here you see it's got the ST logo, and it does have this high gloss sort of piano black, sort of piano blackish honeycomb grille. Now, I don't know, you guys let me know what you think about this grille, and let me know if you like to have a monochromatic Ford logo. Now, they have it in blue, and I know it's traditional, and I know it sort of embodies what Ford is about, but give me a black one. I mean, everything about this car, SUV, is black. Why not give me this in black? I complained about this in the Explorer as well, and I said, give me a black monochromatic. Now, they do hide the front camera in there, and they do have front sensors in the front as well. This is also gloss black, but that sort of ties into that. Anyways, enough of the front. Let's check under the hood and give me your opinion on the front of this Ford Edge ST. And under the engine, we have a 2.7 liter twin turbo. Makes a clunking sound, but look, they've got two shock rods here, or prop rods, or whatever you want to call them, but they are two of them. Not the whole clink, clink, trying to find there's lots of options here, but where is the cover? Where is the Ford Performance cover? Anyways, regardless of that, this thing, which is completely bare and weird, makes 335 horsepower and 380 foot-pounds of torque. That is crazy, because not a lot of SUVs offer that type of performance. You see, most of them sort of focus on tech and maybe safety down your throat, but this thing has performance, and that's why I'm excited to drive this thing today. and feel it out. Now I drove the Explorer ST and I was really impressed with it. It made a lot of power, it was fast, and yes, it resembled a cop car. This doesn't resemble a cop car, but it's got power and it's sort of a smaller SUV, and there's not many options out there you can find in this type of power plant at this type of moolah. All right, so the question is it foot-pounds of torque or pound-feet of torque? That is the million-dollar question. Comment below on what you think it is. As far as the side of this thing goes, the only complaint I really have about the looks on the side is I feel like it doesn't really have any hips. When I look at it like this, it just looks pretty straight and sort of flat. There's no hips, no booty, no curves. It's just straight. Now they do have some nice pieces. They definitely do have these beautiful 21-inch rims, and it does have a sort of a Ford ST tuned suspension for this specific edge, and it does have a brake package you can buy. You can buy an upgraded brake package. This one does not have it. This just has your standard brakes. But as far as the aesthetics go on the side of it, it's a nice looking SUV. Now in terms of weight, this weighs 4,600 pounds. It sounds a bit heavy, but it does propel itself from 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. The other thing it does have something called torque vectoring, which the Explorer also had, and what that does is essentially applies brakes to either side of the vehicle to sort of straighten out. So if I'm going hard against a corner and I'm pinning it, guess what? I apply brakes so I can turn into the corner better. So it's sort of a brake version of torque vectoring. There's no mechanical pieces that adjust the wheels to go faster. It's just simply brakes that it applies. The other thing you have to know is that in terms of size, this is pretty much almost the exact size as an Audi Q5. You see, the Audi Q5 is 111 inches long in terms of wheelbase. This is 112. That's 1 inch longer than an Audi Q5. As far as safety goes, this does have the Ford 360, so it does have blind spot indicator, front collision system. It also does have lane centering, which is new. It's not just lane keep, it's lane centering, so it'll center you in the middle of the lane. Weird though, it does only have sort of your key system where you have a key in your pocket and you touch the handle. It only has it on the front and not the back. And the other weird thing is it doesn't have roof rails. So if you want to put something on the roof, you can't, because it does have a panoramic sunroof, which really shouldn't affect how the roof rails are, but there is no roof rails. Check it out, check it out. So it is about 40 degrees in here, or about 110 degrees. There's a huge heat wave coming through the East Coast, and we're boiling at Accelerate headquarters. Somebody pay the bills in here and get us some air conditioning. But the positive thing is you can get the Ford Edge ST line now. So you can get all the looks of this Ford Edge without the performance. You'll get decent performance, but not this type of performance. So that was something that was lacking in 2019 and 2020. Ford Edge ST line. Now, as far as the back goes, they do have this nice Edge written right here and not over here. I do like it, and this nice ST badge. It does have the trapezoidal exhaust. So let me know what you guys think about these exhausts. They are sort of a mix of a parallelogram and then a trapezoid, and obviously I wasn't very good at math. And this Ford Edge ST does tow 3,500 pounds. So if you do have something to tow and you want something that has sway control, the Ford Edge ST does have it. Now, as far as going in the trunk, it does have kick trunk, but I suck at doing it, so I just usually use the handle. As far as cargo goes, let's check it out inside and take a peek. It does have buttons on that side. I don't know why they just don't put it on both sides, but it's on this side here, and this is how you fold the back seats. Voila, that one's really aggressive. The left one's soft and the right one's aggressive. Let's try that again. You guys ready? Listen to this. 1, 2, 3, left and go. Soft, right. And the right. Now this does have a huge entry point. Like, this entry point's massive. It goes from end to end. You don't find this with a German car. German cars always tighten it up. They always have a lot of extra space here, whether it be for sort of electronics or the sound system. There's just a lot of room here. So in terms of width, you can compare this to the vehicle you're driving. This does have 47 wide. It's not quite 4 feet, so you can't fit a 4x8 in here, but close enough. To the back seats, you have 41.5. All right, so on the load floor here, you do have a full-size spare, and you do have some space for some stuff. Now, this says R for right, and that one doesn't say L for left, but you do have some space. You can just leave a measuring tape or whatever you want to leave underneath there for extra space. The other thing I didn't mention here is when I put this down, there is actually a washer nozzle right on the rear camera to clean the washer nozzle right there. Anyways, let's jump inside, take a gander in the back seats, and see how we do. All right, so I'm in the back of the 2021 Ford Edge ST. Now, we reviewed the Bronco Sport ages ago, and the softness of the seats are exactly the same like this. They have great interior. Also, all the newer Fords have just they totally revamped their seats because it has a really soft sort of feel. I wouldn't say memory foamish, but I would say that it's soft yet firm. This does fully recline all the way back, and it does have, let's count it, probably about, yeah, let's say about 5 different increments of settings. Thank God. Now these don't slide backwards and forwards, but it does recline. Now this version does have heated seats in the back. It does have USB-C, USB, and a full, as you can see right down here, it does have a full plug that has 150 watts, which is higher than some Kias we've reviewed in the back of a Telluride. It does have more. Everything else feels sort of Fordish, nothing crazy, but there is something cool. It does have 4 handles right here, 4 of them. Now, this is something unique because Ford actually talks about them and tells people that we offer 4 of them. And when we reviewed the other performance car, the M3, it does have 4 of them as well. So performance cars have 4 of these guys, and non-performance cars only have 3 or 2. I won't get into how much room this thing has in the back, well, because it's a Ford Edge and there's a million of them around, so you probably already know that. This is really about the ST and what the ST brings to the table. It does have some white stitching here in the door panel, but that's all from the last generation as well, so there's nothing really new as far as the interior goes. This suede is called the Miko Suede insert, or a Miko Suede seat, which is more eminent in the front. So let's go in the front and check it out. So as I jump in the front seat here, it does have a light on the outside that shines down so I can kind of get in when it's dark outside, except it doesn't have the ST logo like the Explorer ST does, which is weird. I would expect that as a puddle light when I'm walking the handle, whether I pull it. I want to have some sort of ST notification on the outside of the vehicle. Now, when I open the door on the sill, it says Ford Performance, but it doesn't say anything really about the ST. Kind of disappointing. I'd like to know that I'm in an ST while I'm paying ST money. Now, other than that, when I'm in the car and I'm sitting on these seats, these are the Miko, as I mentioned, the Miko Suede seats. They do have ST kind of back here. But a lot of guys did say that the way these seats are fitted, you're sort of sitting on top of the seat. Now that's correct because the seat rail is very, very high. I can't lower the seat any lower than it is right now. And I'm sitting pretty high, like I'm sitting right in the center. So anybody taller than me would say they're sitting on top of the car. And that's sort of the overall consensus with how the seat feels. As far as the seat itself, it's very kind of skinny. It's not very wide. So if you do have wide hips, or you're just bigger than me, you'd find that the bolsters will kind of poke you a little bit. So maybe jump in a Ford Edge ST and feel the seats out for yourself. But that's the only real complaint. As far as the seat itself goes and holding you in, it holds you in very good. It's very solid. It's a good seat. It's very comfortable. It just has those bolsters that are sort of tighter than I expect. I wish I could sort of adjust them, but I can't. As far as everything else goes, this is all sort of Ford edgy stuff. The biggest change in here that I notice, obviously, is this 12-inch screen. This is the huge improvement to it because the old one was small. It didn't look good. It was offered to us many times before, but I just didn't want to review it. I want to review something new and exciting and fresh. And this is probably one of the newer reviews out there because I couldn't find a lot of reviews on the Ford Edge ST. So thank you, Mount Bridges Ford, for loaning us this Ford Edge ST. Pretty cool of you to have a new one and give it to us. Now, as far as this 12-inch goes, there's a lot of meat and potatoes here, but I'll get into that in a second. I want to talk about everything else. It does have new for 2021, acoustic laminated glass. It also does have a 6-way power passenger seat. That wasn't available last year. And it does have heated steering wheel standard now. As I mentioned, it does have all the safety stuff. So I want to get into the safety aspects of it because you can get that across the line. What can we get different in an ST? Well, you do get this different sort of trim in an ST. You do have your normal Explorer type circular. And I mentioned that because of Range Rover. At one point, there's sort of Land Rover influence in the Ford SUVs, and that obviously brought about this circular shifter. So they have park, reverse, neutral, drive, and an S for sport in the middle. As far as everything else goes, it does have wireless charger now, which is a new thing for 2021. It does have USB-C and USB as far as USBs go. Underneath here, the only sort of weird thing I saw is it does have a really, really deep center console, but it's not sort of flat. It sort of has this indentation that goes out and in. There's sort of a hidden pocket here. I don't know what you'd hide in here, but they've really tried to scoop every sort of square inch of space. So that's kind of nice. I wish it did sort of go backwards and forward, but it doesn't. This is sort of typical. It does have the ST logo down here, and it does have this white stitching all across the seats, the steering wheel, and the door cards. And yeah, everything else looks primo. All right, so the meat and potatoes is this real 12-inch screen because this is the big change, and this is what Ford's really pushing. And then really, honestly, anybody that wants to get into an SUV that has some power and then wants some tech, at least now it's a decent offering. So let's jump in. This thing does take over-the-air updates, and it is their Sync 4A, their newest stuff they have. Again, it does come with wireless charging. But check this out now. It's pretty cool because we reviewed the same one in the Explorer, but it was way more outdated. This is actually a lot closer to the Mach-E. Now, here's the first thing that shows it to me. When I'm actually clicking on the HVAC controls, I can put my finger here and I can move it up or down right on the side of the screen. I actually don't have to be on this exact line. You see, a lot of people would complain and say, well, when I'm driving, how could I put my finger here? So they thought about that, and they actually put it that you can just touch it, move your hand wherever you want, and go up and down to change the temperature. That is pretty cool, but there's so much to this thing, and let's get into it. So let's start at the top here. There's a car button. When I hit the car button, it gives me my list of what's available. So in this specific case, there's sound, so I can set my tone, I can set my balance, my fader. I can set my speed compensated volume, which essentially means the faster I drive, the louder the sound becomes. Next one up is radio. That's pretty straightforward. You can preset your rows, that kind of stuff. Phone list, again, these are sort of standard stuff. So let's get into some more important things like the vehicle. So you can set your rear occupant alert on or off. You can also see your modem serial number, the door keypad code, which is sort of unique to Ford. It does have a door keypad on the outside, so you can actually press what code. So you don't have to have your key. You can leave the key in the car if you even wanted, and you can get in the car by simply just touching a code on the outside of the driver's side door. You can also set up your rear view camera delay. Pretty cool. You can set those little things up. Next up is general. This is where you can set your kilometers, whether you want it in miles, your Celsius. Pretty standard stuff. Most German cars have this, and a few American products do. It's just nice that it's clean and laid out very, very well. Next up is a display. You can set a comm screen. Now what a comm screen does, when I hit it, you'll see, it basically just cleans it up, and there's nothing on the screen except for the time, the date, the outside temperature, and if your Bluetooth or your Wi-Fi is on. So let's get back into it. Hit the car button again, and let's go to general. My apologies, hit display. Actually, one in general actually is kind of unique. You can get rid of this touchscreen beep, which I kind of like because I don't like the beep every time. You can set your brightness, obviously the clock, the connectivity, your vehicle hotspot, system updates, mobile apps, which, hey, I don't specifically use. But I think one of the more important pieces here is the ambient light. And it does have ambient light, but it's not very deep in their ambient light. It's just really one color, and it really only populates sort of around the cup holders here. And it's just a more aqua green. I wish you had some choices in colors. You can set the brightness and that kind of stuff. But again, it's very easy to use, just not really too deep in the menu it offers. But where it is deep in the menu it offers is the radio stations and satellite radio. It's pretty nice. You can set all these up. This is just very easy to use. Normally, a lot of cars have 6 of them, but here you can see a ton of them. It's really, really nice to have, and you can just keep layering them down. The HVAC controls are also very easy. You can hit low, and as I mentioned, it's just very nice and clean. This part over here is my favorite part of this car. The fact you have 3 increments of auto. You can have low auto, medium auto, and high auto, which is pretty cool to have because you don't want the fan going on like crazy, but you also do want the temperature regulated in the car. On the top here, I do have 6 little icons I can hit, and it sort of has the quick buttons. So you have radio, phone, navigation, Bluetooth audio, Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay, which are now wireless. You can get Android Auto that's wireless, and Apple CarPlay that is wireless. No wires anymore. But one of the big additions they added is notes. Now, a lot of people are jumping over the hoops for this notes thing, and let me go over it with you. So in this specific case, I can press a color I want, and I can write it. So let's say accelerate. A-C-C-E-L, E-L-E-R, and then number 8. And it says right here, subscribe. The E. Now, you can save this note. So the concept is that when you're driving, you think about something, you write it down, but it's not the easiest to use. I would say that they should market or pitch it for kids to play with. So somebody in the front wants to write a note, the kid can write it, and it keeps him kind of busy or engaged. But as far as a driver using it, I can't see a real driver using this notes in this specific fashion. It just feels like a lot, you know, like look at my hands, it works very well, it's fun. It's like Microsoft Paint, but a nicer version. Am I being too harsh is the question of the day, and the answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Is the way Ford has it set up, is it's set up to use this first. Now, when you dig deeper, you actually find that there is a purpose to this, and here's what it is. When I click this arrow button, I can kind of scroll over, and here you can see you can make it a little bit thicker. You're writing a little bit thicker, less thicker, get rid of it, so on and so forth. But when you hit this plus button here, you actually have 1, 2, 3, and X and O's, and this is what Ford should really highlight. Instead of tucking it away in this sort of menu here, they should have this right here because the paint is cool to have for sure. But what's really important is this. Check this out. This is a calculator. So when I'm driving and I'm trying to figure out a cap rate of a building that I want to buy, I simply just put in the math of it. That building's $350,000 divided by how many units, let's call it 3, and it's going to cost $116,000 per unit. This is kind of cool. This is cool information to have right when you're driving, not the paint. You should offer the calculator first. And secondly, you should offer X and O's second, and then the paint last. Paint shouldn't be the primary focus of when you get into this. It should give you all three options. They should call it games. They should call it something different, not simply just notes. They should have paint, calculator, and finally X and O's and tic-tac-toe or whatever you want to add to this, but not simply just put under notes. So that's the only downside I will tell you of how it's marketed or how it's displayed. Sometimes things get lost in translation, and this is something that will do. Totally cool thing to have, just hidden a little bit in the back burner where I would prefer it right on your face. And just like the Mach-E, they do have this sliding banner here on the bottom, and this is exactly where you have navigation, that sort of thing. As far as speed go, yes, this is modern, this is fast, this is new. This is no complaining. Ford, I love it. And that's a brief overall look of this 12-inch screen with the Ford Sync 4A. Let's take this thing for a drive. Let's go. All right, guys, so I'm in the 2021 Ford Edge ST. So I'm going to talk about the car overall, but I want to hammer on a few points that was in the 2019 and 2020 complaints and that they've cleaned up over here. So that one of the first things is the D and the S. When I go from drive to S, what happens is the sound, the pumped-in audio really elevates when you're in here. But when I started doing some research on the 2021, it seems like they've toned that down a bit. So I want to test that portion out. I also want to test the suspension, the brakes, and when I go into S, this little tachometer comes on the left side of the cluster. So in the center is the actual speedometer. That's analog, that's fixed. On the left side's digital, on the right side's digital. This is no different than the models before. They haven't really changed this at all. This they've changed completely in the center, but on the left side it's the same as before. There's a little tachometer. When I press the S, it pops up. When I put it back into drive, it kind of goes away and it shows your fuel economy. So I guess it's really for the person that just wants to get excited. Press S, get some blood in their veins, and then and zip off. And the other thing I want to test out are these paddle shifters, because obviously there's a big change in the transmission. So let's go. That's pumped in audio. It's not too much though. All right, so we're gonna try the paddle shifters here because, all right, so in second gear on the ground, push the button. Shift's pretty decent. Off the throttle, into the turn, on the throttle a little bit, and on the throttle. Keep my mouth shut. There's the noise. It sounds good. This thing is smooth and fast. Oh, man. That's fourth gear. Woo! 90 miles an hour, fourth gear. It's got a nice smooth suspension. It's definitely not overly sporty. I mean, I can tell with the steering feel here. If you just watch my hand, it's a little bit delayed. I would say that it's sporty, but it's still on the side of comfort. It's definitely not stiff or firm. I would say that it's somewhat direct. It's definitely not fully sport car. I wouldn't say this is a full ST model. I felt like the Explorer had a little bit more hardness and a bit more sportiness to it. This is definitely softer, and I understand why. This is the most sold size of SUV in the market. Across the board, everybody wants this size of SUV. If you made it super firm and hard, well, you're just wiping out basically a good chunk of your sales. So I understand making kind of soft and giving some of the sporty stuff to it. But did you see how fast I was going? I did not feel that fast. I didn't feel like I was going that fast. Anyways, let me whip back around, do the exact same thing with the S button on. So the S button's on right now. The tach shows up and foot to the ground, no paddles. Oh, it's definitely more aggressive. Sound is the same though. So the way they've sort of set this transmission up is to hold the gear when you're in S. And again, I'm gonna go around this corner here and on the throttle now. I am impressed, little ST. So it's definitely not a big difference between D and S. So listen, I'm in S right now, in D, in S. So there's no difference in sound. They fixed that from the 2019-2020 model. That's definitely not the case. And these seats actually hold me in really tight, obviously, because it scoops you in. And I'm kind of getting used to that little bolster on the side. It is still definitely there, there's no doubt. And I would say definitely try these seats before you buy one. But as far as the sound goes and the pumped in audio goes and the transmission, yeah, they fixed that problem. So here's what I find funny though, is they've given you these notes or this little Microsoft Paint thing here but you can't write on it when you're moving. So it's been turned off when the vehicle's in motion. So I guess when I'm thinking about something, I gotta stop, come to a stop, and say full stop, and it goes away maybe. No, come on, give it to me. Let me do my notes here. Notes. I gotta shut it off. Okay, I gotta put it in park. Oh, I gotta put it in park. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Not. Yeah. Who thought about that? I think I'll stick to driving. It's got a good sound. What this does well that's kind of surprising is you really don't know how fast you're driving, which is sort of unique in a domestic product. They're not really designed or thought about that way. It's usually German products you think about, oh yeah, this is just, it's going fast, we don't really feel it, Autobahn kind of stuff. But again, I was doing 80 miles an hour and it didn't feel that way. It felt very stable and solid. So they've done a good job that way. I didn't really expect that with how soft the suspension is. I was expecting harder suspension just from the fact that it's an ST, and that terminology might scare people away thinking it's too performance oriented, but it's not. It's actually really designed for the everyday user with some power, because there's not much out there you can get with 380 foot-pounds of torque. 335 horse, 380 foot-pounds of torque. That's maybe like Audi SQ5 stuff, but again, that price point is higher. Yeah, the build quality is a little bit better or a little bit more firm or tighter, but this tech is amazing. This tech is definitely better than the Audi SQ5. The center, it's got some work to do, but again, this is larger, and again, you save some money. So I feel like if we're comparing an Audi SQ5 here, only because of power numbers, the Audi SQ5 is just really designed to be more sporty. So the SQ5 you're only going to really look at if you want something that's performance oriented. This gives the impression of being performance oriented. It does perform that from an engine perspective, and the transmission, they've definitely fixed that issue what people were complaining about before. But as far as the ride goes, it's not firm. This is definitely softer than the Audi SQ5. It's cheaper, it's softer, there's way more dealerships to service it. But the question is, do you like the way this looks? Do you like the way this looks over an Audi SQ5 if you have to put the money out there? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, big thanks to Mount Bridges Ford for loaning us this car, and we'll see you in the next one.